So in the last segment of Project C8, we introduced the car and talked about its technology. The mid-engine design is pretty radical and groundbreaking for an American company. Now since then, we've taken the car on the track and we learned about some of its shortcomings. Probably the car's biggest shortcomings are the brakes, which we found that fade pretty easily under track conditions. Another shortcoming is the MagneRide suspension, which works great on the street, but under track use makes the car kind of inconsistent and leaves the driver kind of second guessing what the computers are wanting to do. We're going to cure this with some bigger brakes from Essex Racing by AP and some KW Variant 3 coilovers. So with the brakes and the suspension being part of what's holding the car back, that's what we're going to address in this segment. So starting with the front of the car, we've done some pretty cool stuff. For a suspension, we're using the KW Variant 3. Now the Variant 3 is a mild upgrade over stock. It's mostly to get rid of the MagneRide system and to give you the user full controllability of the shock's damping. That way it's nice and consistent. The V3 has the same spring rate as the Z51 package, so it's 4 kg spring, identical to stock. It has double adjustable damping, so you can independently adjust the compression and rebound damping, so you can fine-tune the shock to whatever tire combination you have and what kind of driving you're doing. With this, you're going to get a lot more consistency. It's not like a race setup, but it should work nicely for our initial round of modifications, and it should be a nice street shock. We're going to do something really trick later. We're going to get some of KW's four-way adjustable solid piston V5s later, but that's to come. So that's it for the suspension. The really sweet thing we're doing on this car are the brakes. We're using Essex Racing's AP kit. This is quite a bit of an upgrade over stock. It uses AP's Radical caliper. It's hard to see from this angle, but the Radical caliper is AP's new asymmetrical design. They've done extensive computer modeling on this, so they could actually pare away a lot of the caliper, so you can get better airflow through the whole caliper for cooling, and also to save a lot of weight. But you don't even give up any stiffness. That's always a risk when you machine away a lot of the caliper. In fact, with the analysis, this caliper is even stiffer than the one it replaced. It has a really interesting parallelogram shape to it and all that, so the material lines up with the direction of the torque and the distortion that brake torque causes. It's a pretty unique street car caliper. It's the kind of technology you see in their F1 and prototype calipers, for instance. And here it is on our Corvette. The caliper is 6-piston. That's up from the factory 4-piston calipers. And the pads are a lot bigger, so you got a lot more pad volume. More pad volume means longer pad life under hard use, a little bit better thermal characteristics. One critical thing on late model cars is you have a lot of integration of electronics, so the ABS, the stability control, and traction control all work together. This all works with the brakes too. So one of the important things is the hydraulic proportioning between front and rear, and OEM and modified has to remain about the same. If you have any differences, or you have much difference in the torque bias between the front and the rear, the electronics can go haywire, and you can get really unpredictable handling. So what Essex has done is they've matched the surface area of the pistons between the AP caliper and the stock caliper, so all of your factory electronics work. Finally, the two-piece rotor, you replace this big chunk of iron with an aluminum center hat. That saves a lot of weight. So in between the Radical caliper being all milled down and the two-piece rotor, the Essex system loses 14 pounds off the entire car. That's quite a bit. That's both rotating and unsprung weight. Unsprung weight reduction is always good. The more unsprung weight you have, the less well your suspension works. And rotating weight is quite a bit of an influence on your acceleration. The rotor is a lot bigger than the factory rotor. The AP rotor is 372 millimeters by 34, and that's up from 338 millimeters for the stock rotor. Bigger rotor means more torque available to stop the wheel, and it also means more thermal capacity. So the rotor can take more heat and absorb more heat. More thermal capacity means more fade resistance. Some other features are the rotor floats. Floating rotor prevents like cone distortion. Factory type one-piece rotors are prone to distort like a cone as they go up in temperature, which causes like a mushy pedal and an unequal distribution of pressure across the pads. With the floating rotor, the rotor can move independently of the hat, and you don't get that kind of cone distortion. Also, if you start developing any run out or anything, or any slight flex in the spindle system, if you have a floating rotor, you're less likely to get piston knockback, which can cause a long pedal, which you don't really want to have when you're going down the track. So more braking, less weight, more direct control of the damping. This should make a significant difference. So the rear of the car has some pretty cool stuff too. Like the front, we're running the KW Variant 3 coilover in the rear. Now, the rear coilover has a 5 kg spring rate versus the stock 4.6 kg, so it's slightly stiffer than the factory shock. Like the front, it has independently adjustable damping. The rebound is up at the top, easy to get to. The compression is a knob down there, also easy to get to. What's really cool is the brake setup. The C8 is pretty unusual to where from the factory it has a way bigger rear rotor than the front. So the upgraded rotor is not that much bigger in diameter. The stock rotor is 350 millimeters in diameter, and the AP one is 355. It's only slightly bigger in diameter than stock, but it's 32 millimeters wide and has a lot of internal volume for cooling. Like the front rotor, it's a two-piece floating rotor with the same advantages. It uses a Radical 6-piston caliper. That's 6 pistons up from the factory 4. Better distribution, bigger pad, more pad volume, better wear resistance, a little bit more fade resistance under track usage. And best of all, it shaves 12 pounds of unsprung and rotating weight off the car. So bigger, more fade resistant, and lighter. So of course we're going to upgrade the tires on our C8. Now the stock tire is a Michelin Pilot Sport 4S. Now this is a ultra high performance 4-season tire. 4-season means it works all year round. It actually works decently under dry conditions, but for the track we're going to need something better. So what we decided to do is run a Toyo R888R. Now this is a R compound racing tire, but it's also DOT approved, so you can drive it on the street. Now this isn't a super gumball, really fast time attack tire, but a tire that is really good for the enthusiast. It gives really good wear under track conditions. You can probably get a few weekends out of this. It's not going to give you time attack winning lap times, but it'll give you consistent performance all the way through for the entire tread life. The Toyo can heat cycle really well, so that means it's pretty much good to the last drop. We're running the stock width in the back at 325, but in the front we're going up from the stock 255 to a 265. The car tends to understeer, so we're going to put a little bit more meat in the front. The UTQG, which is the tread wear rating, is 100 on these. That's a lot softer than the 300 on the Michelins. These tires, although they're streetable, are like summer dry condition only. Like, you're not going to want to drive in the rain, and especially not on the snow or anything with these. So it's kind of like a one season ultra high performance tire. The intended use of these is something that you can put on at home, drive to the track, do your track day, drive home, and then put your daily driver tires like these Michelins on. It's a great tire for the grassroots person. It's also good if you want the ultimate in dry traction that's sort of streetable. If you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us. And if you want to see more about this project car in detail, go to MotoIQ.com. Keep your eye out. We're going to be rolling out with articles about the stuff we do.